On February 13, 2025, after spending more than 26 years on death row, James Ford was executed by lethal injection in Florida. In this video, we'll uncover what happened, his last meal, and his last words. It was April 6, 1997. 25-year-old Greg Malnory and his 26-year-old wife, Kimberly, were looking forward to a peaceful fishing trip with their 2-year-old daughter, Miranda. They had been invited by Greg's co-worker, 37-year-old James Ford, to a sod farm in Charlotte County, Florida. He said it would be quiet, peaceful, good fishing, but James had no intention to go fishing that day. By the next afternoon, April 7th, the quiet stillness of South Florida sod farm was broken by a discovery no one would forget. A worker from the sod farm stumbled across Greg and Kim's pickup truck, parked in the middle of a wide-open field. Something felt wrong. The doors were wide open and no one was around. It all felt a little too quiet, and that's when they saw Greg. He had been shot in the back of the head with a .22 caliber rifle. But that wasn't what killed him. Greg had stumbled across the field, bleeding and disoriented, trying to survive, while James followed him slow, deliberate, and patient. When he caught up, he attacked again. This time was something blunt, likely an axe. 7 crushing blows to Greg's face and head. And then as Greg lay there on his back, helpless, James drew the blade across his throat from ear to ear. It was so deep it exposed the muscle underneath, and there was no getting back up. Then came Kim. She had tried to run, but she wasn't fast enough because of an old injury. She was desperate to save her child, and she managed to strap Miranda into the back seat of their truck, but that was as far as she got. James caught up to her before she could escape. Her body was found near the truck, with 9 blows to the head, one hard enough to fracture her skull. Defensive wounds covered her arms. She had fought hard. Thumb-shaped bruises along her inner thighs told investigators she had still been alive when he started assaulting her. James sliced through the swimsuit she wore under her clothes, and forensics would later find his DNA on her shirt and inside her. Then, with the same rifle he had used to shoot Greg, he loaded a single bullet, placed the barrel inside Kim's mouth, and pulled the trigger. She died instantly, and all of it happened just a few feet from the truck, where Miranda sat strapped into her car seat, watching. Miranda wasn't even 2 years old. James didn't touch her. He didn't harm her. He just walked away, left her there, and didn't think twice about leaving a toddler in a car seat in the Florida heat for more than 18 hours. By the time someone found her, she was dehydrated, covered in bug bites, and her clothes were soaked in her mother's blood. But somehow she survived. The evidence told the rest of the story. Witnesses had seen James with the couple earlier that day, and later that night, he was spotted with blood on his face, hands, and shirt. When police arrested him 10 days later, scratches ran all over his body when questioned. James's story collapsed in pieces. He claimed he had been hunting alone, that he left the couple and their daughter behind at the sod farm, and had no idea what happened. But the details kept shifting. His version didn't match the timeline, and too many things didn't add up. Then came the forensics. Parts of his rifle were recovered from a drainage ditch near where his truck broke down. Greg's DNA was found on James's pocket cat knife, and Kim's DNA was all over his truck. And the final blow, the DNA on and in Kim's body was a perfect match to James. But why? What was the trigger that pushed James to this point? In court, both the crime and the man behind it were dissected. James's defense claimed he wasn't evil, just broken. They pointed to years of alcohol abuse, a low IQ, and developmental delays. They said he couldn't fully understand what he was doing, but the prosecution painted a colder picture, one of calculation and intent. They focused on the brutality and on how methodically he moved in the hours after the murders. They argued this wasn't a man who snapped, it was a man who chose. James was born into chaos. His father drank heavily, and by the time James was 14, his mother had walked out and never came back. He dropped out of school not long after, and followed his father as a cemetery caretaker. Tending headstones and digging graves at a local cemetery, the two were close in their own way. But when his father died as the result of alcohol abuse, something in James broke. He spiraled, and what started as a few beers turned into cases, 24 cans a day, sometimes more. Alcohol followed him like a shadow. Friends said he was quiet, and family said he kept to himself. He had no record, no history of violence, and no one expected this despite all the investigations. No clear motive ever emerged, and the why behind it remains one big mystery. There was no evidence suggesting prior animosity or a personal conflict between James and the victims. No grudge, no clear reason, just 2 lives stolen and a baby left strapped into a truck seat under the Florida sun. But on April 18th, 1997, the day after his arrest, James was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Florida prosecutors went straight for death. They said James didn't just kill Greg and Kim, he had also assaulted Kim and then left their baby girl alone in a truck, parked just yards from her parents' bodies. But the case didn't move quickly. Nearly 2 years passed before it reached a conclusion. On March 8, 1999, a jury found him guilty on all counts: 2 murders, sexual battery with a firearm, and abuse. Then on June 3rd, the judge made it official. James would die for what he did. And along with the death sentence, he was handed more than 19 years for the assault and 5 more for abuse. For decades, James filed appeal after appeal, but in early 2025, those final efforts ran out. His execution was scheduled for February 13th at Florida State Prison. That day, he woke up at 3:30 a.m. Some last week has hit Podover's finale, but now, are used the seating, Isn't Distance has read that the reduces to a fanin to deal on the world who are taking with his star, Miranda, Captain Shodo the recently, Inan Losser that will likely get into a funity. But Marcel proper button, the Inford actives, and that so Weber, we heard him galls him with his 2 ones with by idea, activity most. Are there with a seating to a learn that distance officer seating or a 6 states, but enjoyed to allow the family and maid in this